Hello and welcome to this Eastwood Ringing Academy training video. My name's Richard Wolfgang and I'm going to be taking you through some of the background information and theory for Module 7, which is moving on from call changes to plain hunt. By the time you're trying to do this module, you should already have completed Module 6 on call changes or have learned to ring call changes elsewhere and be able to accurately move your bell from position to position very precisely without clipping the other bells. So let's look at the aims of this particular workshop. We're going to aim to give you the background information and theory about sequence ringing, which differs from call change ringing. We want you to understand the difference between following other bells by rote and a place-based system of ringing. We want you to understand how plain hunt is constructed and then extended onto other stages. And we want to give you some tips for how to physically ring plain hunt and manage your rope in the tower. This video is sent out usually in advance of a workshop, and in the workshop we will be looking at handling and striking. A good handling style is essential for proper bell control. To ring accurately, you need good bell control to make the minute adjustments to keep in the right place. To ring changes well, you need to be able to make the very small adjustments to your striking to stay in rhythm, but also the bigger adjustments to move from place to place. If you are struggling to ring consistent and accurate rounds, most of the time it will be due to minor handling faults which haven't been ironed out. We will be looking for them in the workshops and trying to help you fix them. This will include taking in and letting out tail ends to vary your speed. In order to ring changes at every stroke, hand and back, it is important that the whole band strikes in each place accurately and rhythmically. The hand stroke gap is even more important in scientific change ringing, as is a closed backstroke lead. So, we are going to start by looking at what we did in rounds and call changes and what we can keep from that as a transferable skill to ringing methods. So, we know from call changes that bells can move either up or down by one place in the row, or stay in the same place. This is still true. Leading is when your bell is in first place, and lying is when your bell is in the last place, with the exception of a covering tenor. All instructions except "that's all" are called a whole pull ahead of where the instruction will be carried out. Moving up a place requires one extra bell to ring between your first and second blows, so you must wait for longer before your next blow. This is often said to be ringing slower. Moving down a place requires one less bell to ring between your first and second blows, so you must have less of a wait before your next blow. This is often said to be ringing quicker. There is always the same gap between each bell at hand stroke and the following backstroke, whether in rounds or in changes. After the last bell has sounded at backstroke, there will be a slight pause as if to take a breath before the next hand stroke. This is called the hand stroke gap. This rhythm struck accurately is crucial to successful scientific change ringing. Sometimes the tenor will not be the last bell, and the hand stroke gap gives a good indication of where the next pair of rows begins. So, having looked at the similarities from ringing call changes, what are going to be the differences when we move on to ringing methods? So, instead of telling each pair of bells what to do for each change, there are repeating sequences which all have names which you can learn, so that when the conductor says go, whatever the name, in this case plain hunt, all the bells will ring that sequence of changes until the conductor calls "that's all." You do not stop until the conductor says "that's all." If they don't say, then continue ringing the sequence. Calling the changes individually means that there can only be a change in the order in one whole pull's time. If we ring a pre-learned sequence, the bells can change position at every stroke, i.e. hand stroke and backstroke. Since we are now no longer being told which bell we are following, we need to have a fundamental rethink as to how we put our bell in the correct place in each row, which is not based on which rope we are following, as there is no way that either we can memorise all the bells we need to follow, or that the conductor can memorise them and tell us. The way we do this is to ring by which place or position we are in, rather than which bell is in front of us. So when we ring bells using this process of learning sequences, the aim is to produce some nice, even ringing which sounds musical to the listener. The idea is that the piece of ringing is what we call true. This means that as far as possible the rows will all be unique with as little repetition as possible. The Central Council of Church Bell Ringers creates rules and standards for ringing. They define a peal as being 5,000 or more true rows. A quarter peal is defined as being 1,250 or more true rows. These sequences or patterns of changes are called methods, or in some cases where the sequence is followed by all bells including the treble, they are called principles. So, how many different rows are possible? Well, the answer is that varies depending on how many bells there are. A single bell can only ring in one order, and therefore no changes are possible. Ringing one bell is called tolling. If you had two bells, you can ring them in two different orders, 1-2 or 2-1. Therefore, there are two possible rows. If you have three bells, you can ring them in 6 different orders, 1, 2, 3. Keep the 1 where it is and swap the 2 and the 3 over. Put the 2 first, then ring 1 and 3. Swap 1 and 3 over, and then put the 3 first, ring 1 and 2, swap 1 and 2 over. Those are the only 6 orders you can have those 3 numbers. As we go on to higher numbers, there is in fact a mathematical calculation to work out how many different rows are possible. And you can multiply all the numbers of bells together. So 2 bells is 1 times 2 equals 2. If you had 3 bells, that's 1 times 2 times 3, which is 6. 4 bells is 1 times 2 times 3 times 4, which is 24, etc. This mathematically is called the factorial of x, where x is the number of bells and is written x little exclamation mark. In change ringing, this number is called the extent. So, in towers you will have already probably heard things like plain bob triples, Cambridge surprise minor. These method names do have meaning, and they usually come in 3 parts. So, there's some examples of method names, and as you can see there's often 3 parts to them, like plain, bob, doubles. The first part of the name is just the name of the particular sequence to allow us to learn it and recall it by a name, so we're all ringing the same thing, such as Cambridge, Kent, St Simon's. The second part of the name is the type or class of method that we're going to ring, e.g. a bob, treble bob, delight, surprise. And these do all have very specific definitions, but we're not going to go into those today as they're not relevant. The final part of the name, which is possibly the most important to you, is the stage at which we will ring the method, e.g. doubles, minor, royal. And this is simply the number of bells that it's going to be rung on. Let's have a look at this in further detail. So as I've already said, ringing on stage, different numbers of bells is known as ringing at different stages. The name of your sequence being rung will always have its stage as the last part of its name. Plain bob doubles tells us that we're going to ring the sequence called plain bob on 5 bells. Odd bell stages are often rung with the tenor covering so that there's still an even number of bells. So although the tenor isn't taking part in the method and will ring in last place every time, it just forms a drum beat and makes the rhythm easier. It is important that you do learn the names for the different stages and how many bells they're on. So the bits in red in these two tables you do need to learn. As we've already said, we can't actually remember all the numbers of the ropes we're going to follow, so we're going to have to come up with a different solution, and that is counting your places. So knowing which place we're in is fundamental to ringing changes in a sequence. If you've got a hand stroke with 6 bells, the first bell to ring is in first place, the second bell to ring is in second place, and so on. And the same is true at backstroke. And what you need to be able to do is count the number of bells being rung in rhythm while emphasising the number of the place you are in for both strokes, remembering the little pause for the bell leading at hand stroke. So imagine you're ringing the 3 and you need to listen and count as follows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, gap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, gap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, gap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, gap. Listen very carefully when you're ringing. Make sure that you can hear your bell when you're saying 3 to yourself in your head. Now, when we did look at the call change module, one of the options was to call changes by place. And once you can hear your bell and know how much to pull it before it will sound, and ring rounds in this matter, you can try ringing call changes like this. So we're ringing the third bell in rhythm, and you should be emphasising the third beat as we were before. And now the conductor will call third and fourth place swap. So this has the same effect as it would have been from rounds calling 3 to 4. And the bells will now ring in the order 1, 2, 4, 3, 5, 6. You're still ringing bell 3, but you're now in position 4. So as you count along the row, you should be counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. Again, listen to your bell, make sure that you can hear your bell, which is bell number 3, but that it is in position 4. That worked for call changes, but now we're going to start ringing sequences of changes. So you need to be able to count from 1, where you'd be leading, up to the maximum number of bells being rung. So in the case of 6 bells, we need to be able to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, as those are the places that you will end up ringing in. But you will also need to be able to count backwards as well, because if you're starting in 6th place and hunting to lead, you'll be counting 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You need to be able to keep the sequence in your head at the same time as counting these places. So, on the left I have a block taken from a method with the actual order of bells in it, and you can see, because I've highlighted the treble, that it rings in 1st place, 2nd place, 3rd place, 4th place, 4th place, 3rd place, 2nd place, and leads again. So as you count it, you will count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Given that we're now going to ring by places, it's very useful to have a way of describing the places, and this is where place notation comes in. And place notation is just a ringer's shorthand for describing a change. So if we look at our first row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we swap all the pairs within the row, so 2 and 1 are going to swap, 3 and 4 are going to swap, 5 and 6 are going to swap. And we're going to use an X to denote that all pairs swap. From the second row to the third row though, the 2 stays in the same place at lead, it's in first place, and the 5 stays in 6th place for another blow. The middle pairs, the 1 and 4, the 3 and the 6, both swap with their partners. And to make sure that we can write this down simply, we just make a note of which bells stay in the same place. So 1, 6 means that bells in first place and 6th place are going to stay where they are. Then there's another row where all the pairs swapped, and then we get to this row where the treble is going to have another blow in 4th place. At the same time, the 4 is going to be leading for another blow. So again, we just make a note of the fact that bell place 1 and place 4 are holding, so 1 and 4. So therefore the bells in 2 and 3 and 5 and 6 will swap with each other. Then we're going to swap all pairs another X. Then 1 and 6, as you can see, first place and last place are holding again. Then all the pairs swap, and then finally we've decided that 1 and 2 are going to stay in the same place this time, even though they are bell numbers 1 and 6, but they're in places 1 and 2, which tells us that we must swap the places in 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. Now, place notation comes in a block, as it does here, and if we notice, the block has not returned to rounds, but that is the end of my place notation. And what this means is that we then repeat the place notation, which will give us another block. And as it happens, we're going to need to do this a few times. So here we are, the place notation we're going to repeat until the bells return to their home positions, i.e. they'll be back into rounds. So using that block that I gave you earlier, I have to repeat it another 4 times. And this, from the start in rounds, repeating all the blocks till we end in rounds, is known as a course. So there's the place notation that we used earlier, x16, x14, x16, x12. And we can see that that makes the first block work. But then if we take that bottom row from the first block and we'll put it at the top of the second block just as reference, it doesn't get repeated, and then we apply the same place notation to it, we come up with 1, 3, 5, 2, 6, 4 at the bottom of the second block, and we keep repeating it until eventually, after we've run all 5 blocks, we're back to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's a little summary for you of how place notation works. It's just X is swapping the pairs of bells. The numbers 1 and 2 mean you swap all pairs except for those, but you could have 1, 2, 3, 4. So hold 1, 2, 3 and 4th place. You'll only swap 5 and 6 on 6 bells. Now if we were looking at odd stages, i.e. doubles, triples, etc., we're going to swap all bells except for the bell that's got the number written. So if there was a 5, well there isn't a 6 because there's only 5 bells, so 5 can't swap with anybody. So 1 and 2 will swap, 3 and 4 will swap. If the 1 is being held, then 2nd and 3rd place must swap, 4th and 5th must swap. And if you held the middle one, the 3rd place, then we know that 1st and 2nd places swap and 4th and 5th places swap. So let's move on to the actual structure of plain hunt. Plain hunt is actually a building block for pretty much every other bit of ringing there ever is. And when you ring it on its own, it can be a method in its own right, well in fact a principle, called original, and its full name would be therefore original doubles if you're ringing it on 5 bells, which some people will call plain hunt on 5, some people will call plain hunt doubles. And if we were on 6, it would be original minor, or plain hunt on 6, plain hunt minor. An original is a type of sequence which is called a principle, as all the bells, including the treble, except for a cover bell, are going to follow the same path throughout. Now I'll give you the place notation for original minor. It's X16. So each block that we repeat must be 2 changes long because there are only 2 elements to my place notation. And if you look at the first block, there's the X. That takes us down to, so the first change is an X, and that gives us the second row effectively in that block, which is 2, 1, 4, 3, 6, 5. And then we apply 1, 6 at the next change, which gives us the row 2, 4, 1, 6, 3, 5. As we discussed earlier, we then keep repeating that, and lo and behold, after we have rung it 6 times, we get back to rounds. So that is the full course of original minor. Now, to look at the bigger picture, what we're going to do is just slide the blocks down one after the other until we get a complete, which is the course from start to finish. And as you can see, by looking at the treble, it starts in first place, it moves gradually up to seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, does another blow in sixths, and then comes back fifths, fourths, thirds, seconds, lead. I've created a magic bookmark, and there is a path drawn out on it, and at the moment that path is following the treble. So the treble starts in position 1, goes to position 2 to position 3 for the end of the block. If I now looked at the 2, so I've just slid my bookmark down a little bit, we see that the first thing it does is it leads, and then it goes out to second place, third place, fourth place, fifth place, sixth place, fifth place, fourth place, third place, second place. So it's following the same path as the treble did, but just slightly later. And you can see where I've put the red box around, that is the block where if the treble was in seconds place, it would ring. We can then repeat this for the third, and we can see that that one's going out to the back first, so it's a bit ahead of the treble. And again, we've drawn a little box around it, so you can see what the treble would be doing if it started in position 3. And there it is starting in position 4. And position 5. And position 6. So we can see that they're all actually doing the same thing. So all the bells must move up or down one place unless they are leading or lying. And this process is what is known as plain hunting. And the bells do not change their direction, i.e. up or down, until they reach the front or the back. So it's a bit like an old-fashioned game of Pong, where you're bouncing a ball from 2 paddles, one each side of the screen. On all stages, when you get to first place in plain hunt, you will lead for a whole pull, which is hand stroke followed by backstroke. And this is called leading right. On all even numbered stages, when you get to the back, you will lie for a whole pull, i.e. again hand stroke, backstroke. And this is called lying right. Odd numbers bells are always going to start hunting in the upwards direction, i.e. going out. And even numbered bells are always going to start hunting in the downward direction, i.e. in. And if you forget that, just think about the treble. It's an odd numbered bell, but it can't go any lower, so it must go out. Therefore we're going to say odds out, evens in. Remember that it works for pretty much everything. There are exceptions which are much later on, but for the moment, odds out, evens in. So as we built plain hunt on 6, we can build plain hunt on 5, and we know it's already called original doubles, and its place notation is 5, then a 1. So again, each block is 2 changes. First thing is hold the 5, swap the other pairs, and then you hold the first bell and swap the pairs behind it. Gives us our blocks. And there we go. We can see them all down the side there as I've joined them back together as I did with the version on 6. Again, first place, you're going to lead a whole pull right. But on odd numbered stages, when you get to the back, you land there at backstroke. You still have to do 2 blows, but that means you're going to ring a backstroke followed by a hand stroke. And this is called lying wrong. As we discussed already, and it doesn't change, odd numbered bells go up, even bells go down. Forget the last 2 points, odds out, evens in. So I'm going to play you a video now of plain hunt on 5 being rung on some tower bells. And I want you to listen to the treble and see if you can count its place while listening to it. So when the video starts, it's going to be leading in rounds, and the conductor will say go plain hunt, and you should hear it as the second bell at the next hand stroke, third bell at the back, fourth at the next hand, until we get up to the back, and then it will come back down and lead, etc. And the conductor will say that's all. So listen carefully. Here we go. Second place. Third place. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. 1. So did you manage to count that okay? We're going to listen again, but I'm going to really slow it down, which will drop it a few key and make it sound slightly satanic, but I think you'll be able to count it easier. So now we're going to start looking at another little concept which is probably not very relevant at the moment, but it's worth understanding how plain hunt is broken down into place bells. So I'm going to represent this graphically. So there I've got 5 ringers stood on a staircase, and we've given them each a number, and they're going to walk through plain hunt on 5. So each step represents a place. So as you can see, the treble stood on step 1, so it's leading, and we read up the stairs until we get to bell 5, which is in 5th place. And we're just going to swap the pairs, so 2 and 1 will swap, and 3 and 4 will swap, 5 will stay the same to start with, because that's what the place notation tells me to do. So watch the video. They're ringing rounds, waiting for the conductor to say go. You see each bell leads twice, and they lie twice, and then they hunt down, up and down, one place at a time. Now if I move the camera so that we can see the steps and ringers in 3D, so they're all on their home step at the moment. The treble's on step 1, 2's on step 2, 3 on 3, 4 on 4, 5 on 5, etc. But, you know, because in this day of health and safety, we make sure they don't bump into each other. We're going to say that going upstairs, they always do on the left-hand side of the staircase, and they're always going to come down on the right-hand side of the staircase. And let's look at this with the numbers and what's actually going on. So there they are. Each bell's on the step at the backstroke from the previous block, which in this case is rounds. So you can see if you look at them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. And then we're going to apply the first change to that, which is denoted by place notation 5. So the 5 must stay where it is, which as you can see is just wandered across the top landing. And then we're going to swap the ringers on the steps 1 and 2. So 1's gone up a step, 2's gone down the step, and we'll do the same with the ringers from on steps 3 and 4. And then you've got a new row reading up the steps. So step 1 has 2, step 2 has 1, step 3 has 4, step 4 has 3, step 5 still has 5. So 2, 1, 4, 3, 5. And then we're going to do the same for the second change in the block, which is a 1. So this time we keep the step 1 where they are, except they're just going to walk across the bottom so that they've got something to do. And we're swapping the ringers on steps 2 and 3 and steps 4 and 5. And again, read the new row going up 2, 4, 1, 5, 3. That's the picture from the previous page, and it's the backstroke of the first block, so that's why it's in my little red box at the side. And now we read up the stairs. Now bell 3 is now on the 5th step, but it started on the 3rd step. So in the last block it went 4th step, 5th step. The treble is now stood on step 3, so what do you think the treble's going to do next? Oh look, it's gone up to step 4. So, place notation for the first change in the block again is 5, so we keep ringer on step 5 where they are, swap the ringers on steps 1 and 2, swap them on 3 and 4, and there's my new row reading up the steps. And we're just going to keep repeating this pattern block by block. This is the 3rd block. Now if you notice in the title it tells me that this is 4th place bell. So if you look at where the treble is in that backstroke row, oh, it's in 4th place. So that means that the work of the 4th place bell is going to be to drop down to 3rds, then to 2nds. Watch. There we go. And then it's going to do that again. And we're now down to 2nds place as we've reached the end of the block. So here we go with the last block. Go. So the treble's now leading at hand stroke, and then we're going to lead backstroke as well, and there's my new row, and it's rounds again. So place bells are a useful labelling tool for labelling the blocks produced by the place notation with reference to what specific bell do. And it is useful to understand that the block is labelled by where the bells start from in rounds, and it's useful to understand that the block finishes at the backstroke row after the last change of the block has been rung. It is useful to understand that the position of your bell is in at the backstroke after the last change of block dictates which block you must ring next. However, at the moment you don't need any of this in your thoughts to ring plain hunt, so don't over focus on it. It's some background theory that will become very essential in the future, but for the moment just appreciate that it does happen, and it helps break down plain hunt into the little separate blocks. The next thing we're going to look at is coursing order, which many people throw up their hands in horror about, but it isn't actually that complicated. So what is it? And it is a vast and complicated subject which we're going to explore a little more in later modules, but for now, in its most basic form, it's just going to help you to ring plain hunt and enable you to understand some of the help that is given to you by conductors and other ringers when you potentially lose your place. So the simplest definition of coursing order is it is the order that the bells follow each other up and down to the back and the front, and the order that they lead in and the order they lie behind in. So we've just seen all of those little steps, and I'm going to join them together into a little video, and I think that should explain slightly better what coursing order is. So watch what's happening to the treble, but also look at what's happening on the bottom step, i.e. where people are leading. So did you see that the bells actually just followed each other round in a circle, all following around that centre handrail? The order that they're in is the coursing order, and we need to note that the treble is following the 3 and the 2 is following the treble. So the bells play effectively follow my leader, and they keep going in this continuous circle, and that circle is the coursing order. So if we take our treble, the bells followed it in the order 2, 4, 5, 3. That means that the complete coursing order is 1, 2, 4, 5, 3. But in the way that the bells go around in circles, so does the coursing order. So depending on which point on the circle you start from, 5, 3, 1, 2, 4 is exactly the same coursing order as 1, 2, 4, 5, 3, as is 3, 1, 2, 4, 5, or 4, 5, 3, 1, 2. You're just rotating it, but it is exactly the same thing. Again, at the moment, it's useful background information just to get a concept of what coursing order is, but it does have some uses to what we're trying to do at the moment. So we're going to look at course bells and after bells. So when I said pay attention to who the treble was following and who was following the treble's following the 3. That makes, and we call the 3, therefore, its course bell, and the treble is said to be coursing the 3, which just means that it is following it. The 2 is following the treble, and as far as the treble is concerned, as the name would suggest, that is the treble's after bell, but the treble is the 2's course bell, and so on round the circle. Now once the 3 has led, the treble must lead next, because we can see that it's behind it in the little circle that we can see on our staircase, and this is known as turning the 3 in this case from lead, or taking the 3 from lead. And after the treble has led, the 2 must lead next. So if you were the ringer of the treble, you would be told that 2 turns you from lead, or 2 takes you from lead. So a lot of people want to know definitely, who do I follow though when ringing plain hunt? Well, while we ring in places, listening and rhythm, being able to spot which rope you're following is helpful, and it's known as rope sight. And you can actually eliminate a lot of the bells based on the theory that you've just seen. So if you know who your course bell is, therefore if they lead, you must lead next. So your backstroke in second space before you lead must be over your course bell. So we know for definite who we're following then. We know who our after bell is. So if we're leading, they're going to lead next. So when they lead, we're going up into second place. So that second place must be over my after bell, because that's in first place. You know that because your course bell is ahead of you and will reach the back before you do, you cannot ring after it until you have reached the back. You know that you turn your course bell from the back of the row. So when you get to the back, your first blow in fifth place must be over your course bell. So that's another place we've ticked off. And you know that your after bell turns you from the back of the row, therefore your second blow is over your after bell because it's going to come up into fifth place after you. So in the case of plain hunt doubles, which is what we're going to be trying to ring, there are only 4 blows in the entire thing which you don't already know which bell to follow. And there's only 2 possible ropes left that you could follow. Because when you're leading, you can't follow anybody. In second place, either before or after lead, we know who we're following. And in fourth place, either before or after line, we know who we're following. So you've only got the other 2 ropes to worry about. And the trick is that as you're hunting up, look round the circle, and those 2 ropes, the one that pulls off immediately after you will be the next one you follow. Well, that only leaves 1 more rope, so that's the one you follow after that. And as I pointed out in that last little thing, if you figure them out on the way up, in plain hunt, they're exactly the same on the way down. A lot of times you will hear ringers say, I don't know, you're ringing the treble to plain hunt, you got a bit lost, and you've got it to the back, and you're going to come down to the front. And you'll hear a conductor saying, come on, treble, follow the 3 down to lead. So, how do I do that? Well, the first thing is that we're going to notice is that all the bells are equally spaced around the path with a 1-step space. So, if you look at 2 and 4, 3 is empty between them on their side of the staircase. If you look at 1 and 3, step 2 is empty on their side of the staircase. So there's this 1 space each time. Between 2 and 1, you've got half the landing. Between 5 and 4, you've got half the landing. It's counted as 1 space. We know that you can't ring before your course bell till it reaches the front of the row, until it gets there first. So don't overtake it. If it hasn't pulled off its Sally, don't pull yours off. You know that you turn your course bell from lead. So when it's finished leading, it's going to go up to seconds, and you're going to lead. So if you watch your course bell and you pull your rope as if you were following them, but you leave an extra beat before pulling your rope, then you will be coursing behind them. So you do this until you see your course bell lead at handstroke. Your next backstroke must therefore follow them without the missed beat, because you've caught up with them, like in the picture there with 1 and 2, and then you can lead full at the handstroke. So now let's actually look at physically ringing plain hunt, and having done a lot of the theory. So we're going to ring it on 5 by places. So from the perspective of my treble, who's leading when we're in rounds, they're going to hunt up 1 step until they get to that top landing. And going upstairs is harder work than walking along a flat path, as you're working against gravity. And the same is true with a bell. To make the bell go slower, to allow it to strike 1 place later, it needs to swing through more of its circle, which requires you to pull harder, let out tail, and catch it lower. And you'll get 4 slow blows, and you can count them. 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. And that's got us to the back. Once we get to the top, we've reached that landing plateau, and that's like walking along a flat path. So we have to put in less effort, and the bell should therefore be rung with a nice even pull, catch the sally at the rounds position, and take in enough tail so that the rope remains taut. And this is more like the energy required for a gentle stroll rather than stomping up a hill. But the landing is short, and we've stepped across it with one even blow, for which we've counted 5. Now we're going to hunt back down to lead, and that will be one place earlier each stroke. And again, going down like the stairs, you need less effort as gravity will be acting with you. So this time, just guide the rope rather than pull it. Don't put lots of weight on it. Take in the tail so that it can't go as high. Catch the sally higher so the bell can't swing as high, and make sure your rope stays taut. And you'll find there's 4 quick blows. So we're going to count them. 4, 3, 2, lead. At the bottom, we're going to reach another landing, and the bell should be again rung with a nice even pull, catching the sally at the rounds position, taking in enough tail so that the rope remains taut as you did in 5th place. Again, we'll step across it with one even blow and count lead. So this brings me on to rope management, because when you were learning to ring rounds, what we taught you to do was hold the rope in the best place you could find to keep your bell consistently in the same place in the row. So you didn't really want to be moving up and down it, and one of the common things is, oh, the rope slips through my hand all the time. Well, yes, so you readjust it all the time. That becomes less of a problem when you start ringing methods, because we have to adjust the rope all the time anyway. So method ringing is requiring our bell to move every hand and backstroke, or at least be able to, because sometimes we will stay in the same place like we saw in leading and lying. You should already know from module 6, the call change module, that in order to move your bell for a position, actually the work for that has to be done at the previous stroke, and this is done by altering the amount of strength of pull, the position of your hands on the tail, and where you catch the sally. So therefore, to ring methods, we're going to need to give different strengths of pull and catch the sally in different positions, and take in tail and let out tail pretty much every stroke. So your hands, although in an ideal world will move the same distance, they're going to be dynamic, moving up and down the sally and tail, and we're going to call this rope management. So let's just have a quick think about what happens at each stroke. So imagine you're ringing the treble, so you're going to have the speaking part of saying look to, and before you say that, and certainly before the conductor says go, think about where your first blow's going to be. So we're already in 1st place, and as we learned in call changes, the call will be made at hand stroke and will take effect at the following hand stroke. So the backstroke, we're still going to be in rounds. You're an odd numbered bell, number 1, and as you saw earlier, odd numbered bells always start hunting in the upward direction. You know that in call changes and in method ringing, your first move is to swap with the bell that is in 2nd place. So you're going to ring one place later at the hand stroke where the change is made. There were 4 bells between each of your blows in rounds, 5 if you were ringing with a cover. So to move to 2nd place, you're going to allow an extra bell to strike before you, which you can think of as ringing slower. And to ring one place later at hand stroke, you must pull the previous backstroke slightly harder, catch the sally slightly lower, which allows the bell to rise higher, swinging through more of its circle before changing direction, thus taking longer. And as we've just seen in the previous slide, it's dependent on the setup in the previous stroke. So the last backstroke in rounds determines if your bell is in the correct position for it to be pulled at the right time at the next hand stroke. Then you just have to pull it at the right time and it will strike in 2nd place. But we also know that the next backstroke, we want to be in third place. So again, we've got to allow an extra bell to ring in front of you, so we're going to ring the next blow one place later again, which will be another slow blow. Now, we haven't covered this before, but to ring one place later at backstroke, you must pull the previous hand stroke harder. And you're going to have to let out some tail to allow the bell to rise, swing through more of its circle, and take a bit longer. So again, we're setting up to go into fourth place, and we've got to pull these harder, give it a bit more flick, let the bell rise, and we're going to keep doing that until we get up to the top. You shouldn't need to let out any more tail though, because you should have let out enough, and the gap between your bell each time shouldn't change. So make sure you give this hand stroke in fourth a really good pull. People often struggle to get into fifth place, I found. So just give it an extra little pull at foot when you're hand stroking fourth place. We're now lying in fifth place. A slightly gentler blow, because we're going to want to stay in the same place. We don't need to be into sixth place because we're going to hit the tenor is covering. So we're going to be at round speed. And you don't want to overpull the backstroke, because you're going to have to stop that one earlier, because the next one is going to be dropping down again. So you will need to catch the sally in the position where you used to catch it in rounds, rather than where you've been catching it hunting up. And now we're coming down again. So this is the second stroke of lying wrong, and we've got to get into fourths. So that's one less bell. So pull the sally very gently. If you overpull it, it's going to go all the way up a backstroke and your bell's going to be late. So don't add too much force to it. As you do the hand transfer though, leaving the back, take in about 10 inches of tail. That sounds an enormous amount, but it is far more important to take in too much, because you can let some out at the following backstroke if you need to. And again, hunting down, it's all about being gentle. Make sure you've taken up enough rope so the rope never goes slack, and it will prevent the bell from rising too far, and then you won't have your ringing teacher or conductor going, come on, you're too slow down to lead. You are limiting where the bell can rise to by catching high and taking up tail. And if the bell is pulling you up onto your tiptoes at either stroke, you are over pulling. Again, coming down 30 seconds, gentle. Really do though make sure, listen all the time. Experience just tells me that one of the things I have to say the most often is, come on, hurry up to lead. They start coming down at the reasonable speed from the back, but they haven't done up the tail properly, and the bell stays slow, so that by the time they're supposed to be in second place, they're still festering about in 3.5 place. So double check your striking. And there we are, we're setting up for the hand stroke lead. We're going to pull the backstroke less, because we've still got to go in, drop a place, but then that place we're ringing rounds, so we're back to round speed. And we're going to summarise it all in a table, and you can see the red bits are pull harder, the green bits are normal rounds pull, and the blue bits are pull gently. And then in the sally and tail column, you can see catch below where you think, rounds position, above where you think, above, below, and so on. Final thing just to have a quick look at is extending plain hunts to other stages. So there we are, there's plain hunt on all stages, singles, doubles, triples, cases, sinks on the odd stages, minimus, minor, major, royal and maximus on the even stages. And as you can see, the place notation is still only 2 numbers for either, so it's still blocks of 2. They're following the same path. If we look at the treble, you can see it basically starts on the left, goes to the right and back to the left, i.e. all the way up, all the way down, stops for 2 blows, front or back before turning round. On the odd numbered stages, we always start by swapping the front pairs, and the bell that doesn't get involved in a swap is the last one. That's the first change of the block, and that gives me a place notation of N1, where N is the number of working bells. So singles, there's 3 working bells, it's 3-1. Doubles, there's 5, 5-1, all the way up to sinks, which is 11 bells, which is 11-1. And then on the even numbered stages, we always swap all of them first, and then we hold the front and last bell, so 1-4 for minimus, 1-6 for minor, up to 1-12 for maximus. So let's summarise the module. Instead of changing position only when you're told to, at a hand stroke, this scientific change ringing requires your ability to have an ability to change place every hand and backstroke. The names given to methods tell us a lot of information, including how many working bells are being used. Please learn these stage names by heart. I don't know how many times I have to say this, but do learn them, because you look an idiot in the tower if somebody says catch hold for plain hunt. You think, oh, it's plain hunt on 5, and you grab hold of the 6, and they say go plain hunt minor, but you think, oh, it's doubles, so you don't move, but it's minor, so you should. So make sure you know the stage names. It's always better to ring by places than attempting to know which rope to follow, although it is an advantage to know who you follow. But if another bell's wrong and you try and follow them, then you're wrong as well, so count your places. We already know that you have to prepare for your bell to move position at the previous stroke, and that the way to do this is by altering the amount of strength of pull, the position of your hands on the tail, and where you catch the sally. So rhythm and rope management are the key to successful change ringing, and you should now understand how to read place notation and convert that into sequences of numbers. You don't need to remember it, you won't ring by it. I mean, there are some people that do. I have no idea how they manage it, my brain doesn't work like that, but just understand that when you're reading it, you can actually derive the columns of numbers from it, and it will become useful in the next section when we look at other methods. You should now also understand how the blocks of plain hunt form the overall path, and how they've been joined together in what we call place bells, which just literally describes the place of a bell moving from the start of its block to the end, and they're all referenced to rounds position. You should appreciate that the bells follow each other in a coursing order. Most importantly, you need to know what course and after bells are and start to look for them. You should now be able to interpret things that conductors and other helpful ringers tell you when you're ringing. You should know that hunting up requires harder pulls, catching the sally lower and letting tail out so that your bell rises further because you're going up, and you make the gap between the blows longer. And that when we're hunting down, we require very gentle pulls, catch the sally high, taking tail to limit the swing of the bell, because we want the bell to swing less far, so lower. And you should be able to also understand how it's extended and contracted onto different stages. So my final thoughts, the essential message is count your places, pull harder hunting up, and be gentle hunting down. A lot of the concepts in the module are regarded probably too advanced to teach ringers who are learning plain hunt. However, we then forget as teachers that we then give you helpful tips and you don't understand them because you don't understand the theory. So hopefully this video has given you an overview of the theory, because they are the fundamental building blocks of ringing, as is plain hunt. So I think looking at coursing order and play spells now with plain hunt gives you an awareness of them, and they will become more important as you continue with your ringing career. Don't think because you've watched this video that you will suddenly be able to plain hunt perfectly. You're going to find it difficult, most ringers do, but patience and practice, it will get you to the point where you wonder why you found it was so difficult. So don't lose heart, keep going. And as you start to find it easier to plain hunt, I suggest you re-watch this video, reread the notes, and you will start to notice these patterns and concepts as you ring. So have fun, happy hunting.